Terrorism is not new to Southeast Asia. Terrorism and terrorist are related terms with comparable meanings and purposes. An individual or organization engaged in terrorist activities, whether directly or indirectly, is considered a terrorist or a mastermind. On the other hand, terrorism is defined as an act carried out by a person or a group using force without the approval of the target and involving the use of a weapon. The actions of several local and religious militant groups constitute a serious threat to the country's internal establishment for the majority during the Cold War. However, during the 1990s, the threat presented by substate violent extremism has increased in response to both the political influence of radical Islam and the drive of modernization sought by many Southeast Asian countries. It built on the underlying motives, drivers, and capabilities of the principal extremist groups that have utilized terrorist violence. The terrorists in Southeast Asia happened in several focus countries such as Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Cambodia. The relative severity of terrorism has been outshone by COVID-19, the climate crisis, the coup in Myanmar, the war in Russia and Ukraine, and the rivalry between China and the United States. Many people would find it difficult to name a big terrorist act that occurred during the COVID-19 wrecked years. Therefore, terrorism appears to be largely forgotten. That comes as no shock. Terrorism has been declining in Southeast Asia in recent years. However, in this age of globalization, we are frequently exposed to a wide range of violent crime cases that are easily accessible on the internet. As a result, since terrorism is a global concern, it should receive a lot of attention from individuals all around the world.
Next, we move to the issue the Asian face. There are two issues, which is the first one is the Abu Sayyaf Group, ASG, in Philippines. Since the fight against terrorism sparked by the tragedy of 11 September, Asian has been concerned about the issue of terrorism. The Abu Sayyaf Group, ASG, which is based in the Philippines, is one of the Asian terrorist issues. The stability of Southeast Asia as a whole is also impacted by the acts of this group, in addition to the stability of the Philippines on a national level. Amir Hussein Jumaini and Abdul Razak Abu Bakar Zanjalani created the extremist group of ASG in 1991. They believe in the ideology of attacking other religious communities and consider violence to be the only effective method of conflict resolution. The Abu Sayyaf organization is closely linked to other terrorist organizations around the world, and Zanjalani in particular is regarded as a veteran of the Afghan conflict. Abu Sayyaf terrorist organization is well known for its string of kidnapping attacks which have been successful in drawing in a sizable number of new soldiers. Since its founding in 1991 till the present, the Abu Sayyaf Group has seen numerous cycles. The group was established to pursue political goals, but there is a clear undercurrent of kidnapping for ransom, KFR, activity that exposes the group's desire for wealth and material success and has since come to be seen as its defining trait. Instead of political goals like pushing the government for policy change or the release of terrorists from prison, the kidnappings are usually carried out for financial gain. For the second issue, is about the Bali bombings in Indonesia. On October 12, 2002, at 11:05 p.m., an explosive device was electronically exploded in a packed bar in the heart of the Resort Island entertainment area. This is indicating the start of the Bali bombing. Around 200 people were murdered and 300 were injured in a coordinated bombing and explosion in a nightclub area frequented by young travelers and backpackers, which is mostly from Australia and Indonesia. Jemaah Islamiyah (JI), Al-Qaeda, Muslim hardliners, religious zealots, and Muslims radical were some of the names used to describe the enemy. The tragedy marked the first significant terrorist attack since September 11 and the worst terrorist act committed against foreign nationals in Indonesia, a nation that is frequently pressed by the international community to take action against terrorism. Dramatic economic implications for Indonesia compounded a deadly incident on innocent citizens. The terrorist attack, which cost around $35,000, severely damaged Bali's tourism sector and resulted in damage that were estimated to be in the millions of dollars. From the incident, 12 Indonesian police have detained a number of suspects with the significant assistance of Australian and American detectives, including Ali Gufron, which is also known as Muklas, who is believed to be a senior Jemaah Islamiyah commander and a friend of Bashir. 8 suspected Jemaah Islamiyah members were caught by Indonesian authorities in July 2003. According to report, the suspect claimed their aim included specific targets like hotel, crunch, and shopping center. One key lesson is that government may be reluctant to recognize the threat posed by terrorism because they are preoccupied with other domestic concerns.
Since the late 1960s, conflict and terrorism have been significant challenges in the Philippines. The ongoing conflict between the democratic government and numerous rebel organizations prevent prosperity and economic progress. Around 62% of the terror events that were reported in the Philippines between 2008 and 2017 were bombing or armed assault, which may have a negative effect on economic, social rights, and fundamental freedoms. The economic impact of terrorism may be more than most people think. Despite the horrible human cost, society bear heavy financial burden as a result of terrorism, which may not only cause immediate harm to property, but also has an extended negative impact on regional economy. Due to property loss and the cost of repairing damaged buildings and infrastructure, terrorism has an immediate negative impact on the local economy. As the financial market gradually recover from the shock of the attack, it also experienced long-term consequences. In the Philippines, since rice is one of the principal crop ground in the Philippines and is regarded as a must-have food and primary source of sustenance, terrorist activity have an impact on rice production. Next, terrorism negative social effect might include harm, death, and physiological distress. People who live in terrorist-affected nations experience uncertainty in their daily life because they are unsure of their safety. People typically have post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and significant depression following terrorist attack. Children are particularly susceptible to the adverse physiological impact of always being on guard against terrorist attack. As Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte imposed martial law on the whole island of Mindanao as violence erupted in Marawi, increasing military power and enabling warrantless arrests and stepping up surveillance. Martial law has been extended by the legislature to the end of 2019, and its impact on resident physiological and physical well-being are felt extensively.
Tumingin ako, tapos nagbidis ako tumingin nasa baba. Tinatawa na, nakita ko sila. Yung isang kapatid dito daw sa paa. Yung ate ko naman dito daw, ang rami. Ang isa ko naman kapatid na babae, dito daw. Kikisa pa ako ng helicopter. Tatakot ako kasi meron mga sundalo. Akala babarilin niya ako eh.
Lastly, the impact of terrorism has been felt in practically every aspect of human existence, whether it be political, social, or economic. When compared to the other traumatic occurrences like natural disaster, terrorist attacks often affect those who were far away and knew no one who was involved. Terrorists also violate people's right to equality and freedom from discrimination when they target particular group of people with their terrorist attack, as in the Philippines. Teenagers were less able to move freely or meet up with a friend due to the curfew imposed by martial law and the terror it caused as a result of the Marawi siege. Although generally seen as a good security precaution, martial law has limited certain people's freedom of movement and access to services.
More than 200 people lost their lives when 2 bombs exploded in Kuta, a popular tourist destination in Bali, on October 12, 2002. This was a global tragedy affecting people all over the world because many of the deceased were vacationers taking advantage of Indonesia's top tourist destination. Indonesian tourism has been impacted by this tragedy known as terrorism. By emphasizing its natural beauty, historical legacy, and cultural diversity, Indonesia, a developing nation made up of numerous volcanic islands where hundreds of different ethnic groups have lived for ages, has tried to attract more tourists. However, as tourists must feel unsafe to travel to the dangerous country, terrorism in Indonesia will cause a large decline in the number of tourists arriving. According to the World Bank, tourism flows to Indonesia and Bali especially remain well below normal levels in the wake of the October 12 tragedy. This demonstrated how Indonesian tourism has been negatively impacted by the tragedy of the Bali bombings. The next result of terrorism will be an economic crisis. For instance, dangerous nations will experience a sharp decline in tourism since international visitors will be frightened and uneasy about visiting. In turn, this has an effect on how much money the nation can make from the tourism industry. According to the World Bank, in May 2003, there was little optimism in Bali's tourism industry, and most operators were focused on surviving the crisis. This demonstrated that terrorism has a considerable influence on the economies of the countries because the nation will need a substantial amount of money to replace the infrastructure that has been devastated by bombing. The economic issue will cause the nation great concern. Furthermore, a considerable sum of money needs to be set aside to help their citizens. One illustration is offering free medical attention to terrorism victims. Consequently, the country's ability to address these concerns will be hindered by the current economic crisis.
In Southeast Asia, violence is nothing new. The action of different local nationalists and religious terrorist organizations constitute significant threats to the region's internal stability during the Cold War. However, during the 1990s, the threat presented by subset militant extremism has increased in response to the political influence of radical Islam as well as the force of modernizations undertaken by many Southeast Asian countries. Here are some recommendations we made to encourage peace and stability in the region, which are enhanced web portal, public campaign, and international collaborations. First, the recommendation is web portal and database need to be enhanced. With something like this, we can learn more about a lot of the terrorist group most recent issues. it is necessary to improve the database and oversight. By doing this, we may learn more about the majority of the most recent concerns about terrorist organizations. We now live in technological advanced world. It is possible that a cybercriminal, sometimes known as a cyber-terrorism, may impact the present generation. In doing so, we can both contribute to our knowledge of the present problems at hand and be better prepared for the worst-case scenario. Second recommendation, public awareness campaign may also be carried out. The country can counter terrorism activity by conducting public awareness program, which will encourage people to prepare for how to prevent terrorism. Every party concerned is conducting public awareness program on terrorism that is occurring throughout the nation, such as providing information about the terrorists. Finally, to combat terrorism in every ASEAN member state, international collaboration must be established amongst all ASEAN countries. It is because the terrorist threat is such a significant and challenging issue to no nation will be able to handle it alone. It demonstrates how terrorism might be minimized when the ASEAN countries work together. To summarize all the recommendations, the fact that terrorist activity combines the characteristic of both and alone does not distinguish it from other forms of violence, crime, and armed conflict. Since violent crimes aim to undermine the democratic process, they cannot be classified as ordinary crimes. Aspirational goals can be strengthened with better implementations methods as they target both cooperation and the development of national capacity to fight terrorism. Therefore, despite some disadvantage, it provides various benefits for those who create the ASEAN regional agreement.
In conclusion, the terrorism problems that arise in Southeast Asia can have a negative impact on the economic, political, and social well-being of the entire region. The attack on the United States in 2001 has served as a catalyst for the expansion and development of terrorist organizations worldwide. This trend has entered Southeast Asia, where terrorist groups appear to be sprouting up in a number of Asia regions. The strength of the nation's defense system is closely related to the expansion and development of terrorist groups in Southeast Asia. Problems such as political and economic instability, weak government and security system, the existence of extremist bases, insurgent groups, and narrow-minded local militants who unite ethical issues and clashes, as well as external factors of the international internet, are all seen as practices for a country with a poor defense system. Nevertheless, if a nation is solid in terms of political stability, economy, a great system of governance and security, together with moderate positions on religion and belief, and a robust educational system, this will help to reduce the occurrence of terrorism in that country. In addition, terrorists today are determined to cause harm to a society in order to force its government to conform to their demand. Human or economic losses may result from the harm. Both types of losses demonstrate a government's inability to safeguard its people and property, which undermine public confidence in its authority. Terrorist attacks could indeed destroy infrastructure, resulting in business failure. Terrorism can have an impact on key industries such as aviation, tourism, and export, lowering the GDP and also affecting the economic growth. As a result, there is an urgent need to take action to address it before it becomes worse.